Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joy Lashery, and I have with me today um, her stage name is Saint Ginger, but we're going to call her Jenn today.
Hello, everyone.
So I'm going to give a shout out to my sponsor before we start, and then we will find out how the journey has been for Jenn. So as you can see in the reader board and below, Luscious Moss Studio sponsors the Matured Musician interviews, and it's owned and operated by Chad Christ, who happens to be the lead guitar for Heart by Heart lead guitarist. And he also produces music. He does all of mine. And he started out catering to guitarists and drummers and recording them, and now he's branched out, and he's been doing recordings for a lot of the people that I have no idea who they are. Hopefully this thing is helping him, our interviews. In the meantime, if you have any needs whatsoever, do contact Chad Christ on Facebook as Chad Christ or Luscious Moss Studio, and I am sure that you will enjoy working with him. He's really, really easy to work with. With that being said, Jenn, how did you get started in music, and what were your influences, and did you play an instrument? I know the answer to that, but they don't.
If I play an instrument, I mean, I do play, but I don't play well. So we'll get into that in a minute.
All right.
I started off young. I started off at 5, and I have been writing since then, somewhat in the closet after I wrote, as a kid, you write like blatantly and you don't care. Right. So I did write my first song at 5. We don't talk about what its subject matter was because it's not politically correct. But there was a song written.
Okay. Well, now I make curiosities peak.
Well, it's funny because I somehow was this blues kid in a household of not very bluesy people. So we don't really know what happened there. It came out that way.
What kind of music did your family do?
My family, my dad was a big John Denver fan, and my brother was a rocker. So I grew up in a household of 2 very good guitar players, and
Yeah, I hear that. And so basically, you turned to blues. Of course,
we don't know what happened.
Well, there's a lot of similarities between early folk and the kind of music that your father was doing. I don't know about rock. I still try to figure that one out.
Yeah, I mean that it's what I listen to is very different than what I do as far as back in the day. But we all have we all have a mash of things that come in that create what we do. And mine changes. I used to do more jazz and more blues, and it's not what I'm doing now. It's not how I naturally sing. And so I'm a trained singer. I was trained from the age of 7 on, and I went through a strip down in my 30s to get my voice back to my natural voice versus a voice that's like classically trained and a little bit of opera training as well. So it's a great skill to have to bring into your natural voice, but it's not your natural voice.
We do have one heart up here already. So somebody gave us a heart. Anyway, going back to your family. So what was the time frame from the time that you said 7, you started being trained in singing?
I started singing, I think a lot of us, I started in church because my parents made me go. And then I was also blessed with a good school system that had very good music system.
Where did you grow up?
For that portion, I was in Colorado.
Okay.
And I was in Colorado until my freshman year of high school. I did in Colorado, and then we moved back to San Diego, which is where my family is originally from.
Oh, okay. And where are you from now? Seattle?
I'm in Seattle now. Yeah, I've been a few places.
Yeah,
including living overseas. So it's not.
Where?
I lived in Bali for 3 years while you all did COVID.
There's a second musician that I've heard that sings in the Bali in that area. There's another
Yeah, it's
one.
actually that time period brought me back to my music.
Yeah.
So,
So you started at 7, and then you said that what happened after 7? I mean, where did you go with
well, I
this?
mean, you're singing in choir and you're singing solos and you're doing those kinds of things. That's, I think, how a lot of us grew up. For me, I had a brother who was also in music, and so I hate to give him this, but he got the brunt of the attention. And so he had a band, and that was cool, and I was his sister, and that's how people knew me.
Huh?
Ironically, a lot of people forgot that I sang, that I'm still friends with or knew me then, and I'm like, how did you not remember that? But it's because I got a little overshadowed,
Right.
which is totally fine because it gave me some time.
Yeah. Yes.
And he's no longer doing anything, so there's that.
And you are.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did this through, my parents were very conscious of when we moved back to California that I was in a school that had a very good music program. I was in one of those, touring ensembles that we had back in the day.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that through school, which was great. It was pre the show Glee, but that's basically
Was
what it
that
was.
high school?
Yep, that was high school. So I was fortunate to have that. And upon graduation, I went to an audition in college, and I was very, very sick, and they wouldn't let me come back.
Oh, no.
And it killed me. I had just gotten out of a car accident situation that was pretty rough. And I had lost some of my tone hearing.
Oh.
And so to have that and then have this happen on top of it was just it was an end for me for a while. So I've had a lot of starts and stops since then. And there's a song on the album, the most recent one, about this.
What's it called? What's the name of it?
It's called Carbonized. It's essentially about taking all the BS we all get over the years,
Yeah.
and turning it into something more beautiful.
Right. I'll look for that one. Is that on YouTube?
It's all of my stuff is on YouTube. Okay. So that's, if you fast forward through some time, I lived in Baltimore for a while, which has a great music scene. I think it gets undersold, but it's a really good music scene. Started to come back to it then, backpedaled, moved out to Washington, played around here with a couple people in jazz bands, just sitting in and singing. And then in 2019, I moved to Bali. And then we had a thing called COVID that hit. And that was a huge, huge gift being there, because we didn't get hit like everybody else did in the closures. We were closed for like a month and a half tops, and that still wasn't that closed. And some dear friends of mine started this amazing thing called Voices Unleashed, which was an open mic / poetry. So it was poetry, music, and dance. And it was one of the most vulnerable spaces I've ever been in, where you could suck and it didn't matter. That was basically the way it rolled. And the first time we met was 25 people, because that was the max we could have. And then the next time I think our max was 50. And it was full every time, and it's still going on. And now they're international. They're in Amsterdam and New York and Colombia, and I think the Dominican and New Zealand. So, and they're still going at Bali. So that was a huge gift, because it gave me the platform to just come back to it raw. And I was doing covers there because I didn't have a way to really, there's the musicians in Bali, the native local, are incredible, but I just hadn't quite gotten into my rhythm yet. So I wasn't really ready to sit with them and write. Right. Although I did end up writing an EP while I was there. I kind of forget that. So I did an EP before I left Bali. I got hooked up with this gentleman and his girlfriend, and it just kind of evolved. And I was like, yeah, I just need to do this EP. I don't love that EP. I like the message in the songs. I don't necessarily love the production and the output of that. It is still up
That
on.
was produced in Bali, correct?
Yeah.
Are they similar to what's going on here?
But I think there's just a little bit of, there's a little difference. And I mean, my latest one was done in Nashville, and you can't get much better.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like the.
You can. But I'm sorry, Seattle. I don't actually mean that about you.
Yeah, I had a chance to go to Nashville, and I said, no, I don't want to destroy the vibe here. I mean, I'm not from the South, so, and I sing country, so, but country rock more or less, and I just didn't want to destroy the vibe.
Now, I don't want to live there. It's very clear to me. Like, I don't want to live there, but I have very good people that I work with there. Yeah. And I have really lovely co-writers, and my co-writers are everywhere. They're not all there. So my producer's there though. And he's like my brother. So at this point we've spent enough time together that him and his family are mine. And
right. That makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So
when you lived in Bali, I mean, I have no idea what that's like. A few of my friends have gone there, but I myself have no idea what that's like. So what is the influence on music there compared to here?
I think the big difference is music is, you're not considered a starving artist. So it's considered a gift, and it's trained, and like it's in the homes. It's everybody. I wouldn't say everybody, but it's considered a gift. Like it's something you want to bring to the world,
right?
And they have incredible ears. I don't know. I still don't understand it. I've never been anywhere where it's that innate in people. Yeah, so I think it's part of the culture, is a big part of it. And Bali's Hindu, not the rest of Indonesia is mostly Muslim or Christian. So it's the only island that's Hindu. It's still Muslim and Hindu, but it's mostly Hindu. So that makes a big difference, and that influences a lot. And there's this thing that's said about Bali. We call her Mama Bali because she will spit you out and chew you up and spit you out. and she does. Like it's not, when you live there, it's not the same as going and visiting on a vacation. There's a lot to deal with. There was a lot to deal with to stay over COVID, and also be able to come home and be able to go back. And so it's just very different. And life's on a scooter, it's not in a car. So it's just and you're really connected to nature because it's everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. So
maybe that's where they get some of their inspiration.
I think so, for sure. And definitely in their own music, in the Balinese music, and the Indonesian music.
Now, is that the place where they make all the movies? Is it Bali that they have the huge industry of music making?
Bollywood is not the same as Bali.
Movie making. I'm sorry.
No. Bollywood is not the same as Bali.
Okay.
Bollywood's Indian. Okay. It's a style of film.
Okay.
Yeah. We
have a comment here from Jennifer Van Dale. I hope I said her name right. If I didn't, correct me. And she says, from Bali to country. Wow.
I don't know. It's funny because I don't know. I don't classify myself as country, and I don't think most people do. I kind of fall in that Americana weird space of Americana indie, borderline pop rock, or pop, folk pop, whatever. I don't really understand the genres.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of bleed in genres, so
you get that thing at the end of the year from Spotify of what you've listened to, and I'm like, I don't even know what this genre is.
Exactly. I know. I don't know what indie is. I'm still trying to figure out. But so speaking of genres, what would you say your music tends towards? I mean, eh, is it a mixture of something that you would like jazz and the folk that your family was
I
doing
think it's a
and
mixture, but
rock?
it's more of a mixture of what has resonated with me over the years. And there's not as much jazz in there as there used to be. There's still a little blues in there for sure. Because jazz is like it's a beautiful format, but it's definitely it's not like a natural format. You're not
Oh,
coming, you don't come out singing jazz tunes. It's because of the timing of a jazz song. It's a whole learned process, I think. I don't know how it is for other people, but for me, you have to learn that syncopation.
right.
So I would say mine is like a little blues, a little whatever indie is these days, a little Americana. And then there's this weird little like switch where I have a little Portishead in me.
A little what?
Portishead, the band, and I have been a huge fan of theirs for years. And so we actually had to tone one song back a little bit because it started to be so far into the trip hop, which is what that's considered, that I was like, not on this album, maybe a different one.
Well,
So who knows? Who knows what
so
the next?
you do albums as lesser artists. I was told a while back that lesser artists have a tendency to, like me, to do singles and not to do an album. Where if you're already kind of in there and you are with who you play with, and the fact that you're producing in Nashville, uh, are your albums large albums? Are they like 6 songs or?
No, I mean that was 6 would be an EP technically. There's
Yeah.
all these weird technicalities of it. This is my first full length album. It's 9, and that's like the borderline cutoff.
Okay.
Like, we actually had 8, and I was like, we need to add a song, and that was the week before. So
Oh,
I pulled
wow.
one from my past, and we put it on and redid it. So I think for me, this project, and there's a reason people do singles, and it's because the algorithm is part of it. It's actually led to it's hard to promote an album because it's 9 songs. And
Yes.
people aren't going to listen to all 9
Right.
songs. They're going to listen to the first 4 or 5 if you're lucky, and then they get bored. And it's not that they get bored with your music, it's just that that's just how we're trained now. I think that
Yeah, the internet and all. Yeah.
yeah. So it was a lesson in like, and I knew this going in, but I also knew this project was going to be an album. But it was also a lesson in like, okay, this is what people are doing these days, whether I like it or not. So we could have released it all as singles when it was done, but the original plan and the original vision was an album. And it was written that way. It was also done full band in a room, which
Yeah,
not
that's
always
very
done.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
So
not
that
done
was
that.
it
I'm
was
not piecemeal.
no piecemeal, and it was a big. It was one of the reasons I chose the producer I went with, because he was all in.
Mm.
I did talk to my old producer in Bali and considered going back there to do it, and he didn't really want to do it. And I was like, okay, wait, that's kind of the decision factor for me. So
Yeah. Mm. So when you there's a gap in my train of thought. I'm linear.
it's okay. That happen all the time.
Linear brain.
It's called
But
songwriting.
you were classically trained in voice. What were you, a soprano or
I was an alto,
alto?
but I don't know if you've listened to the album or the songs, any of the songs. I fledged I go back and forth between the two. In fact, my producer was like, "You're like this weird soprano alto thing," because I have a fairly heavy chest voice when I want to, but this album is mostly soprano.
Wow.
So there's a couple songs where I switched back and forth between, but yeah, I don't know what happened.
Sounds interesting. Whatever.
It is like, I don't know. I think, yeah.
We have another comment too. One of my friends and one of the bands that I've been kind of watched grow is called Dublin Abbey. And Patrick he's one of the guitarists in the group. And they started out with a lot of Irish influence in their music, and it's kind of progressed from there. But he has a question, or he has a comment here. He says, "Hi, Patrick. I'm hype. It's Patrick from Dublin Abbey. Do you feel well accepted on an arrival? Art? Did you feel accepted as when you arrived in Bali as an artist?"
Yeah, I think part of it is also I came back to it in Bali. So I had a family that was holding me, essentially. I mean, that's the best way to put it. Like, I had a community that was holding me when I came back to my music in full. So, because I had taken so many stops and starts over life, that this is kind of a reboot.
Okay. And you were talking about how you started out classically trained, and then you said you kind of went through a, rewind and changed the way you were presenting your music. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that process was?
Yes, I worked with a voice coach at the time. I was living back in Colorado. I can't remember her name. Michelle is her first name. And we literally talked through songs for a month.
Really?
And it was horrible.
Yeah, I've had.
If you want to sing, and you want to sing how you're trained,
right.
And that's not necessarily your natural voice.
Right.
It's hard to get grit from that, so to speak. From being in a trained voice versus a natural voice.
Right.
But the beauty is when you are trained and then you learn to the untrained, I put that in quotes because it's not, when you go back to natural voice, then you have all the abilities of having the training, and I can still bring that back in.
Right.
When I'm conscious about it. Yeah. So, it's, so it was a matter of literally talking through songs with the piano or the guitar for almost a month straight. And I was just like, can we start?
Yeah, I hear you. Whenever I can't do something that he asked me to do, my producer, Chad Chris, he will make me talk it. And he said, I think the difference is that what he's trying to bring out is the feeling behind what you're saying. How would you say it? Instead of how would you sing it, how would you say it? And for me, that makes a connection. I know it sounds weird, but it makes a connection.
It makes perfectly good sense because it's connected to your emotive system versus being just you singing out of a place of perfection versus a place of rawness.
Never thought of it that way, but yeah, it is for me, it's certainly a way that brings out my ability to let the emotion shine through.
Yeah.
So basically, we're saying the same thing, but okay. So from there, you went from Bali. Where was the next place you went? And
I came back to the States, and I bought an RV. Cool. Anybody want to buy an RV? I have one for sale.
Oh, you're in tour in that,
it's
right?
Beautifully renovated.
Oh my.
And I did a year in an RV. My dad has a ranch in Wyoming. I spent 2 months on the ranch renovating it. And then literally in the first 2 feet of snow, drove out west to Seattle to get my stuff that I could out of storage into it. And then drove down the coast. And I didn't do the whole US. I just did it. The weather was so bad that year everywhere that I was avoiding freezes all the way down to Austin. So I spent 2 months in Austin. In the city, there's actually an RV park there. downtown, and you're basically paying rent like you would in an apartment
Right.
in your RV.
I live in a 55 plus manufactured home,
Yeah.
so I did it.
Okay. So I did that the first year because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be back in Seattle. And then I decided it was time to come back to Seattle. I have very dear friends here, and they're my family here, and I wanted to be here for their daughter growing up. And she was actually conceived down the hall from me in Bali on a vacation. So we're tied for life. So yeah, I really wanted to be back here, and I love Washington. It's such a beautiful state, and there's something magical and mystical about this place. And so I think it was October of 23. Yeah, October of 23.
Years ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I rooted down here. So
Did you ever get COVID?
I only had COVID once, and it was for 3 days.
Hmm.
But while you all had COVID, I got dengue fever.
Oh, what is that?
That's from a mosquito bite, and you can't. There's no vaccine for it. And usually, if you live in Bali or anywhere of the sort that has dengue, you get it. So, because it's kind of hard to avoid. It's awful. It's worse than any COVID. It's called bone-breaking disease for a reason. So it feels like you're getting run over by a steamroller. It's awful. And I was lucky. I only had it for a week. Usually it's 2 weeks, and then you do have residual for like a month at minimum.
And
but
then it's gone.
If you get bit again, it's worse. So yeah, it's a particular mosquito. You know when you live there which mosquito it is, and once you see them, it's the only time I would say fumigate, but you do because yeah. So
good idea.
Yeah. So that was my COVID.
I think I'd rather have COVID. No,
Yeah.
or nothing at all, actually.
I'd rather have nothing at all, but I would rather have, my COVID was very minimal. So
I often wonder about stuff like that. I spent a little time overseas. But Germany, that's not that great.
Yeah, they don't really have dengue there.
And it was right about the time at Chernobyl, so there was some issues there. But yeah, I don't know if when the cloud went over, whether there was residuals or whatever. But I didn't stay that long. I was there about 3 months, and I kind of get I know it wasn't very long, and it wasn't that radical of a country, but there's a whole different perspective. And it took me about 2 months to come back to the United States emotionally and mentally. And I'm sure you've experienced that.
Oh, I'm still not sure I'm back, honestly. Yeah. Especially with our current situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And I may not stay.
I think the worst part was coffee. I could not stand our coffee.
Oh.
It took me a long time. No. Anyway, thank God for Starbucks anyway. So when you were at Bali, you obviously were really involved in the music scene there, which was different than ours, and yet similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think music scenes are similar everywhere, but different.
What do you think, if any, what kind of influence that experience brought into your music?
I think the ability to be completely vulnerable, because I didn't have a choice there. And I should say, like, there, I can't legally perform. So yeah. So it's a whole visa situation. So the open mic thing was fine because it wasn't we weren't getting paid. So I could never do a paid gig there. You have to have a special visa for it.
There's a young lady I met at one of the gyms at Oxford Saloon in Snohomish, and she came from Brazil, and she was obviously quite a little star there. And not little, I don't know where that word came from, but she was quite a star there. And a beautiful girl, beautiful music. Um, and she couldn't work here either until a certain period of time went up. I came up, and her husband was from the United States. So I don't know the whole process, but
Yeah, I don't know what it is here. I don't know. Like I have friends from overseas that are in bands that I've never really asked them. I know they do get visas to perform because they also are here sometimes longer than they're
yeah,
you're legally allowed without but there's some kind of I don't know what
yeah.
it is in the
I think
US.
it's it must
There
be,
you have to have an artist visa
yeah.
I in order to have residency I had to have a different situation. So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Sounds like an entanglement.
It's complicated.
Yeah. Well, usually at this point, we're watching a video or listening to someone play. That's not an option for us today. But I usually like to touch a little bit on COVID. And you said that while you were in Bali, that COVID wasn't as big a deal actually as it was here for whatever reason. And you escaped that. You escaped that illness, thank God, but not so good with what you did get. And COVID had a big influence here. I was just coming back. I had I had cancer in 2015. I had to quit my band, and I was just so weak. I just couldn't be on stage, and I didn't have the strength. So I just walked away from it. And then I came back in 2019, and oh my gosh, everything had changed. And just as I was getting my foot in, and just as I was beginning to bring my music up more up to date, um, COVID hit, and I got it. And I had been in one of the retirement homes when I got it. I was working with a volunteer senior band out of Bothell, Washington, and it was a time of, okay, what am I going to do now? I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I'm obviously vulnerable, uh, and so I pulled out my guitar and I spent an awful lot of time singing. I got tired of that, and I said, "Well, what's the point?" Because I didn't feel strong enough to go online, which a lot of people did. They
Yeah.
through a venue like this. So I started writing. So that was the first time I had written in all this time. And I listen to that first song now and I'm thinking, oh my God, but I did it and kept doing it. So what would you got back in 2023, or was that just when you had
Summer of 22, and then I
right.
did a year on the road. So yeah, I was there for a full basically
So
three
we were
years.
still in the throes of that. I mean, as far as places being closed down or having to be outside, or was that all past?
No, that was all done.
All past.
Yeah.
Did you have any fears coming back to the United States that you might end up contacting this disease?
No.
Ah, you were well protected.
No, I don't. I don't live that way in general. I also the biggest issue for me coming back is that I had not lived through what everybody else had lived through here.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. And there is a bit of a like, I mean, I still have friends that are worried about getting COVID, and I'm like, that's how I feel about it. But I also recognize like I wasn't here for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both my parents had it, and they had it pretty bad when they did. But they were also in Wyoming, which Wyoming did not close down, you know. Yeah. So I don't, I didn't have a fear of getting it. I recognize how different my experience was than everybody's here. Mm-hmm. And that was an adjustment because I also just didn't understand the weird like pushback culture that we have because of it. Like, don't come near me. I didn't get, it wasn't a part of my experience. I mean, we had that there, but it was we kind of laughed it off, to be honest. We're on an island in the middle of the, in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And we actually are pretty sure we had it before it was everywhere else because everybody was sick in January and February of 2020. And that was that. We all got sick, and then we were done.
Right.
And the locals did. I mean, it was a problem. It wasn't like we didn't have COVID there. It just wasn't the same experience.
Yeah. They didn't put that much emphasis. And, we had a lot of seniors dying. I think that was the most tragic part of it,
Yeah.
was how many people actually lost their lives because of it, and how they were putting these bodies in trailers because they were overwhelmed and couldn't get them.
Yeah, and we didn't have the same rates of loss. I mean, there was definitely loss there, and especially in the local community. And the local community was handled very differently than there were only 2,500 expats left in Bali for COVID, which their entire income is based on tourism. So things changed.
Yeah.
And, for the locals, it was almost a way back to their old ways in a kind of a beautiful way, but it was also very tragic as far as there was no income.
Yeah.
So those of us who were there did what we could. And I think some of us stayed because of that.
Right.
Now it's full on back and crazy. And I haven't been back partially because I know that.
Yes. Well, I hear you.
Yeah.
So how is it going now? Now you're back, and you're starting. And you're actually not starting. You're continuing what you started, and you chose Nashville as your place to record.
Nashville chose me.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay,
so I came back. I moved back to Seattle. After the year I moved back to Seattle, I had a loss in my family. And after that, I kind of was like, okay, it's time to do some things. I actually went to Africa for 3 weeks. And it was in the bush that I was like, okay, it's time. So I came home knowing I was coming back to do this. And within 2 days of me being home, I had it filed to join a camp that you had to be approved for in Nashville for songwriters. And I thought, oh, whatever, it's really late to get in. And it was in September. And 3 days later, I got the acceptance letter. And then I thought, oh, they just let anybody in. And I got there and they're like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
So it was through that I ended up in Nashville. And that was a really sweet experience. I was not the only, there were 2 of us the same age there, and everybody else was super young. And that was a really lovely experience. There were some interesting things to handle with the ageism that was just innate. It's innate in the business, and there's, and they weren't really aware of it, but I was. And so, but that is how and where I got all of my co-writers for the most part. I have a couple that weren't there. And one that I wasn't there that I was one of my favorites to write with. And then my producer I met him there.
Through that.
Yeah. Because essentially it's set up where I think we had 5 different studios with 5 different producers to work with. And then we all co-wrote with each other or for each other. So, and that's a week long, basically. And so through that process, and I came in with a book. No one else did. So I came in with like a book of like, okay, I've got my stuff. Now let's make it. So
How's that work?
I came in a little differently, which turned out to be kind of funny because then it was like a joke. Well, Jen, you have to do this one without any pre stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I have all this stuff to do and I'm paying to be here.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, so it worked out that's how I ended up in Nashville. So I had that happen. And then there was somebody I wanted to work with to kind of get my voice tuned back in. And she had never done voice coaching before. And 3 days after I got back, she was announcing that she was doing voice coaching. So in my world, this was a universal, it was going to happen.
Yes.
So, yeah, so that's how I ended up in Nashville. And I basically spent, I don't know, I went back and forth for almost 6 months to do the album. So there's only one song we didn't write in person on the album. And it was basically mostly written on my end. We just needed to zhuzh it and clean it up, which is what I usually do, and then add actual music because that helps. I mean, there is music because I usually sing my songs into life versus, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Everybody has kind of a different way of developing, depending, I think, on how the music comes to them. For example, some songs I just have the music there. It's just, it comes with the song. Other times I'm just like, oh gosh, I got to get somebody to help me because I just can't. I can't visualize. I can't put it there. I know how I want it to sound. So I had a I had a person, Chris Jones band. He was his band, and he's a great writer. And he helped me get some of the music on the song. And without his help, I could not have put music to that song. First time, I really couldn't have done that. And so he did a really good job. It's a song called Lavender Fields on YouTube and on various other. But it was a more personal song, and I had a mental block. So yeah, all of us, including Chris, right, in very interesting and different ways. So because you don't um, play an instrument when you're out performing, um, it sounds like you're the first person that ever told me that you the melody is kind of how you get the song through.
Yeah, I mean, I do play, like we said, but I don't
Right.
have
Not all.
the structure in my brain somehow has just
Right.
never worked for me to do both.
Right. But you still
Um,
have the music. It's still part of the song.
yeah, I still have music. I still know. I have a bunch of different ways I write. It's kind of a jam up of things. I record a lot into my phone, just when I'm out and about, because a lot of times stuff will come to me when I'm out and about.
Yeah.
I'll hear like something, I'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's not related to that at all, but it clicks
Yeah.
into something
Good.
else.
Yeah.
I have a little trick I do at bookstores that I'm not going to tell because it's my little trick. But titles are a really good way to cue a song.
So, you leave me curious.
I
Huh?
know. And then I write a story. I'm a story writer. I'm a storyteller. That's what I am innately. And so a lot of these songs, some were fully fledged. Most, like one, I went to the writing and I thought it was going to be there's a few, there's two for sure on the album that were like, no, this is what it's, called. And then we got into it, and I said something. There's a song called Left Me in Bali, because I moved to Bali with my partner. I kind of omitted that, but not on purpose. Like,
Okay.
and like we broke up and he left, but he did leave me in Bali. So the song was a totally different name. And my co-writers, Shane Weissman, and then Joey, my producer, they're like, that's the song. I was like, seriously, that's the way we're going to do this? And then we did it. And I was like, yeah. And that song is a reframe. There's no chorus in it. It's just yeah. So it turned out to be one of my favorite songs on the album. I mean, they're all your children. Some days one's your favorite, the other one's not.
I know.
Yeah. And then the other one I came in with was a really hard one for me to write. And I had general chunks of it in a book, and I'm like, this is where it is. This is what it is. And that one's called Where Children Play. It's had a couple different titles, but that's what it ended up at perfectly. And it was a hard song because it's about my childhood that wasn't always so pretty. And I had two wonderful writers. Well, and Joey's on all of my stuff. And I'm trying to think Dennis's last name. I can't think of Dennis's last name. And then Justin Fretch, who is he's a pretty prolific producer. And he's super young. And then Dennis is the opposite end. So I had like this gamut of generations writing a song, and it just, that song is haunting at this point.
What's it called?
Where Children Play.
And it's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, everything's on YouTube Music, and all the other streaming.
I'm gonna have the only impression I got when I listened to your song, the one song that I had time to listen to all the way through, was wow, this girl knows how to sing. That was my impression.
Thank you, because you don't always feel that way when you're doing it.
I don't know if I ever heard the words, because that beautiful voice was there. That's what I was listening.
I'm curious which song it was.
I don't know. I went onto YouTube. I mean, I was having problems finding the one that you sent me. I couldn't find it, and I'm like, why is this? Why am I not finding her stuff? So I thought, well, I'll go on YouTube, and it sounds to me like there's a Saint Ginger in there other than you. I'm not sure.
I don't know that there is, but mine's spelled out, and that's, I don't think there's another. I mean, I haven't run into it yet. There's not one on Spotify.
There's something similar. I don't remember what it was, but I said, no, that's not her. And I finally found this song, and I listened to it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I was impressed. I just love your voice. So
well, that's a gift. Thank you for that.
And I'm not so hot on mine, but I do like yours.
We all judge ourselves differently than we judge our others.
Fortunately. So how can we find you? Where are you?
I'm on all the streaming, every single one of them. I'm also on Bandcamp. I do technically have a vinyl version of this album coming out, but there has been a production issue.
Oh no.
They all showed up last week and they are all bad. So we don't know what happened. We're going to figure that out. So there will be a vinyl one coming out, and that'll be available through Bandcamp. I am also on Instagram. It's at Saint Ginger Music.
Yeah, I noticed most of your stuff is there.
Yeah.
And of course, I couldn't take any of that and put it on my song. I could have, I suppose, but it wouldn't have been. Anyway.
And as far as like on Facebook, I just use my personal page because it's public. So it's under Jenn Tucker. But I really eventually maybe we'll put up a full band page, but right now I'm still sussing out my Seattle band and what that is, because I don't have that here. And so that's my next challenge. But so you can find me in pretty much everywhere, honestly, as long as you spell out Saint. It's not like Saint Vincent's word, it's lover,
figured that out. So looking ahead, obviously you had quite a journey on again, off again, but each time you change something about yourself to bring yourself into where the world is at. Sounds like, I mean, maybe that's not fair, but it sounds like you went from classical to something that was more suitable to how you wanted to present yourself at this point in time. Is that correct? Or
I mean, I think I went to what is my easiest way to emote.
Okay.
So that it's what comes out naturally from me because I sing right, which is not, that's how it comes out naturally. So that's the intention is to move forward with what I'm doing, but maybe with a few tweaks. And also, like, I think I'm one of those artists that can do more than one thing and get away with it.
Right. Multi-talented.
So we'll see.
I think so.
I am looking at actually doing some work in Europe next year. I have a group that I'm working with over there to possibly record just a couple songs over there and release as singles. So we'll see what comes of that.
Okay. So help me understand this. Right now, your main focus is on creating music.
It is. It's my full-time. It's my full-time gig right now. No, it doesn't pay the bills.
Tell me about it.
I am fortunate right now to have this time period to kind of have stepped back from my old career, which I was a designer for years, and move back into this fully. This was always the plan. It just took a while.
Yeah, to get there. Yeah, I get that. So if you were looking at a crystal ball and you could see your future, what do you see 1 to 5 years from now? Provided you won't have that long.
Full band that I love and adore. That feels like family. That gets paid.
Yes. Yeah.
And like to me, the ultimate goal is Red Rocks. It always will be the ultimate goal. I grew up miles from, like just a couple miles from Red Rocks in Colorado. Performing there would be like that's my pinnacle.
Okay. So, well, I don't know. My dad lived in Carbondale, and I went skiing in Colorado. I love Colorado. Went to school in Utah, and visited my son who's in the military. He's at a Army base there. So I'm not familiar with what Red Rock is. Like
Red Rocks is the natural amphitheater that before, I don't know, 80, sometime in the 80s, they put in an actual bigger sound system, but you could go stand on the stage when I was a kid and my parents could go to the top because this was literally what we used to do. And I could sing and they could hear it.
Yeah.
And it's extraordinary. It's it's a lot of people compare it to the Gorge, but it's different because the Gorge was man-made and Red Rocks was not.
Nice, yeah.
Other than the stage itself.
Right. Amazing. And where's it located? What?
It's in Morrison, Colorado.
Where's that?
It's just in the foothills outside of Denver.
Okay. Got it.
And a lot of musicians kind of call it their Mecca.
Ah, okay.
And I think everybody's performed there. I don't know if, like that's the upper echelon of.
Right.
Yeah.
Music world.
Yeah. I mean, but I have to start gigging.
Right, exactly.
And we did do a release show and it was wonderful. We did an acoustic set. My guitar player, as we talked about earlier, is super busy. So I need to kind of figure out and suss out what's happening with that. And yeah, so I am dependent on other people, which is one of the reasons it stopped and started over the years. But I'm determined this time like I haven't been before. And I also
good. I wish you luck. Lots of luck. And
I'm also financially in a different place. So that helps because I don't have to depend on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when during all of this time that you've been working on your music, did you ever have a time where you said, "Oh my gosh," the moment was so magical that you just knew that this was going to be for you? And did you foresee that you might put it down and come back to it, or so it's an aha moment? And did it bring you back to the music with the memory of that?
I think every time I step on stage, I have that moment.
Yeah. I have a lot of answers like that one.
Yeah, it's home. I when I get up there, I feel so at home that I kind of forget I'm there. So it's always good to have somebody else with you to remind you where you are. For me, it's home. So, and I don't get that in very many ways as far as like the same feeling.
Right. The feeling that you're doing what you should be doing, or
I'm doing what I was put here to do. And writing is a big part of that for me. I think that was one of the other things over the years is that I'm not a cover singer. Like I do a few because they're ones I really love doing and they're like, I can embody them. But if I can't embody it, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I get that. I don't always do mine. And it took so much to put into it, and I don't have a band right now. So I do a lot of jams, that kind of thing. And I do other things, but I like my music to be played the way I made it. recorded it, I guess. And I don't really like that messing it up. I mean, these songs are very special to me because it took me an awful long time to get there. And I hold them, but I'm just now beginning to bring them out.
I think it's the funny you said about the messing it up. I gave myself the gift after the album was finished as a week in Paris because I just hadn't been in years and I wanted to just go and be on my own. But I went and did an open mic because you know, but I didn't have, you know, I didn't have a guitar. I was like, I can't. But the guy who runs it did it for me. He learned my song on the spot, which it became a different song. It was not my song.
Yeah.
But I was like, we just got to go with it. It became a blues tune, which was kind of hysterical, actually. And I was like, okay, Beautiful Reckoning is now a blues song. So, and then the next one, I fired him. And I just did an acapella.
You hired him?
I fired him.
Oh, fired him.
That's why he's like, are you firing me? I'm like,
yeah.
I am.
And this was in Paris?
Yeah.
I give my eye teeth to go there. I just wrote a song with a young lady, and I wrote it, but she sang. I sing it in English, and she sings it in French. Yeah, it's called Je t'aime, mon chéri. It hasn't released yet, but I never thought I'd find a French singer, and I happened to go at a little jam in Duval, Washington, and she came in and she started singing in French, and I thought, thank you, God, or universe, whatever.
Just get delivered to things.
So I'm kind of anxious to see how it goes.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have anything at all coming up other than these international rendezvous?
I'm actually currently working on a podcast style deep dive into each of the songs on the album because that was my solution. Thank God for having a marketing background. That was my solution for not releasing singles. So I have friends who are in bands, friends who have music backgrounds or don't, who are lined up. We did the first one. I've got to get the lead in thing done and all of that, and get that shot out to everybody. But, the idea is that they'll pick the song and then we'll deep dive. And then I think I'm actually going to, because some of them are musicians, I think we'll also turn the table on a couple of them. So we'll see. So that I'm working on. I'm writing because I have to write if I'm going to go do this Europe thing because everything has to go in written. And then I'd like to get some singles out before that, but we'll see because it's just timing, and also I need to promote the album. So, and hopefully some gigs. I just have to sort that out. I was able to get my release party booked really quickly, and that was a lot of fun. But now we need to get some more gigs booked in Seattle.
Yeah. I know what that takes, Ron.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's one of those things I'm kind of lost on. I'm like, I don't know. I just message
It's different. I mean, things have changed considerably, and from when I was doing it and until now, and it's like I get kind of lost. It's like, what? I don't understand. I went to not to diss the people that did it, but this guy said, well, we're doing outdoor concerts, so maybe we should practice. So I set up a practice, and I ended up finding out that I had to, for 2 hours, I had to pay him $125, both of them. And
for your practice?
Yeah. And I'm like, what? What is this? So I had to start calling a few musician friends to figure out what the heck is going on. And I
work with one of the top guitar players in Seattle. I'm not going to name drop him because I don't feel like doing that. But he doesn't charge me for practice.
Well, then I found out that's how they make their money. They are professional musicians. They have only what they do musically.
Yeah.
And so any hour that's spent with them has to be backed by money, because if they weren't doing that.
And I get that. I don't know too many that work that way, but that's curious. Yeah. I mean, everybody I know, you pay for the gig. Like
Right.
he got paid for the gig.
Right, exactly. Me too. And then I find this has changed with the group that I'm with. But this is north, and I used to be south. And there seems to be an invisible line between the north area and the south area. And so things are different here. And I'm not sure how or why, but they are.
I'm so curious. Did they charge you the same for the gig then?
No. And no. The gig is a lot more expensive. but I bring that on because when I started, after 20 years, these people are still getting as much, if or less, unless they're in a casino, some casinos, than they did when I was working, having a
Yeah,
band.
I mean, it's not. This isn't a. We don't do this because we're gonna make money.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I think the dream is, yes, someday that'll work out.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be really creative as musicians now. And the only people I know full time doing well are all in Nashville.
Right.
Because that's what people do. And it's one of the reasons I don't want to be
So
there, because there's no differentiation.
Right.
So,
Right. I got you.
yeah.
So we are actually at the 1 o'clock mark, but I do have one more question. It's 101. And so really quickly, if you have any advice for people coming up or people listening today that you would like to share with them, have you got any thoughts on it?
Do it because you love it.
I hear that a lot. Absolutely. If you didn't love
there's no other reason to do it.
You wouldn't come back to it, right?
Yeah. Do it because you love it, and and you feel like, and do it for how do I put this the right way? Sing for yourself, but recognize you're singing for others.
Amen. Yeah, I agree. Good advice. Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
joining me today. I hope to meet you down the road. 6 months for a year. I've been doing this for 4 years, so hopefully I'll still be doing this then. And I'd love to have you back and see where you're at in your journey.
That would be lovely, and hopefully
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good, wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
And wait here until I see you again.
Okay, you as well.
Take care. Bye-bye. There we go. So that's it for today. I have a new band coming next week. And then I think I'm going to take a few weeks off. I got some learning to do. I got an upcoming gig myself. So until then, till next Monday, take care of yourself, and I'll see you down the road. I hope you enjoyed today. Bye, everybody.